Hi everyone! Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The scent of pine needles and damp earth clung to Lyra's clothes, a constant grounding reminder of the wilderness that had been her unforgiving classroom. For 20 years, her life had been distilled into a singular, burning objective: retribution. It was a flame meticulously fanned by her elders, a consuming fire born from the ashes of her childhood. The target of this inferno was an alpha, a formidable presence whose pack had descended upon her ancestral village under the cloak of a moonless night, leaving behind a silence more deafening than any scream. Every sinew-straining training session, every whispered lesson in espionage, every brutal spar against seasoned warriors, all were threads woven into the tapestry of vengeance. She was an instrument, finely tuned and lethally precise, crafted for one purpose: to dismantle him, to rip apart the very foundation of his existence, just as he had supposedly shattered hers. Yet, the method of her infiltration was a particularly bitter draught. To gain access to his notoriously guarded inner sanctum, she had to embody the role of his fated mate. The mere thought sent a tremor of revulsion through her, a visceral rejection of a bond that was meant to be sacred. A mate, tied by an immutable destiny, by an inherent, unconditional love, to the very monster who had orchestrated the annihilation of her family. It felt like a perverse twist of fate, a cruel cosmic jest designed to mock her pain. But practicality dictated her path. The Alpha, shrouded in whispered legends and known only as the shadow among her people, was an enigma of formidable power, his defenses seemingly impenetrable. A fated mate, however, was an Achilles' heel, an open wound, a vulnerability no Alpha, no matter how cold or calculating, could truly resist. This was her key, a golden thread leading directly into the heart of the beast. She ran a calloused thumb over the rough fabric of her simple, undyed tunic. It was a stark, almost laughable contrast to the silken gowns and elaborate coiffures her trainers had insisted upon during her months of preparation. They had drilled her relentlessly, every nuance of her posture, the subtle tilt of her head, the carefully cultivated softness in her gaze, all designed to project an image of demure innocence and quiet strength, the archetypal qualities attributed to a true mate. Lyra, with her mind like a steel trap and her claws, always metaphorically and sometimes literally bared, felt like a wolf cloaked in the flimsiest sheepskin, a predator meticulously masquerading as its intended prey. The deception was not merely physical. It was a psychological battle she waged hourly, against her own ingrained instincts and the bitter taste of the lie on her tongue. The air around her subtly shifted as she neared the perceived boundary of the Shadow Pack's territory. It wasn't a fence or a signpost, but an almost imperceptible change in the energetic hum of the land, a deep resonance of ancient magic and raw, untamed power. Her own wolf, usually a simmering ember beneath the surface of her human skin, began to stir with an unsettling intensity, a low, guttural rumble vibrating deep within her chest. It wasn't the trembling fear of a smaller creature encountering a larger one, but a primal, almost magnetic awareness of another dominant presence, a powerful echo of her own primal core. This was it, the precipice, the point of no return from which there could be no retreat, no reevaluation. The scent of distant wood smoke, carried on the crisp evening breeze, mingled with the potent, earthy musk of wild wolves, guiding her towards the faint, flickering glow of campfires. Her heart, usually a steady drumbeat of controlled aggression, now pounded against her ribs with an erratic rhythm. The plan, distilled to its chilling core, was brutally simple in its efficiency. Charm him, insinuate herself into his inner circle, uncover his vulnerabilities, and then, when his guard was irrevocably lowered, least expected it, strike. The spectral images of her parents' faces, contorted in their final moments of terror, surged to the forefront of her mind, an unyielding fuel for her resolve. There would be no room for hesitation, no whisper of mercy. This was not just a mission, it was a sacred obligation, carved into her very soul with the sharpened edges of grief and unwavering hatred. Every breath she drew was for this moment, every beat of her heart a countdown to his demise. The pack elder, a woman whose face was a roadmap of intricate wrinkles and whose eyes seemed to hold the ancient wisdom of 1,000 moons, was the first to approach Lyra. Her name was Lan, and her gaze, Lyra noted with a jolt of unease, lingered with an unnerving intensity, a flicker of something unreadable passing through their depths. It was as if Lan could peer beyond Lyra's carefully constructed facade, into the turbulent depths of her hidden intentions. "You have journeyed far, child." Phelan's voice was a raspy whisper, like dry leaves rustling across sun-baked earth, carrying the weight of untold seasons. "The Alpha has been, awaiting your arrival." Lyra forced a demure smile to her lips, a fragile mask over the storm raging within. Her hands, calloused and strong from years of training, were clasped loosely in front of her, projecting an image of delicate vulnerability. "I felt drawn here, an undeniable pull, Elder," she murmured, the lie tasting like a mouthful of ash, acrid and bitter on her tongue. "It was as if destiny itself guided my steps across the vast wilderness." She made sure her voice held a slight tremor, a carefully modulated note of awe and exhaustion, hoping to sell the performance of a lost soul guided by fate. Phelan merely nodded, her lips forming a thin, almost imperceptible line. Her silence was more unsettling than any spoken accusation. The elder led Lyra through the bustling, vibrant camp, past wolves who eyed her with a mixture of raw curiosity, outright suspicion, and a few, even, with a glimmer of excitement. Lyra kept her gaze meticulously lowered, playing the part of the shy, overwhelmed newcomer, allowing her peripheral vision and heightened senses to absorb every detail of her surroundings. She catalogued the scent of wood smoke mingling with the earthy dampness of the forest floor, the low murmur of countless conversations, the subtle, intricate hierarchy displayed in the way various wolves moved, interacted, deferred to one another. Every sensory input was filed away, a crucial piece of intelligence for her mission. And then she felt it. A tremor, deep within her very bones, a profound resonance that felt as if the very earth beneath her feet had shifted on its axis. The air grew heavy, thick with an almost palpable presence, an oppressive weight that seemed to press down on her very soul. Her wolf, which had been merely stirring moments before, now surged to the forefront of her consciousness, a raw, primal roar pushing against her meticulously constructed composure. It wasn't the fearful yelp of a cornered animal, nor the strategic assessment of an adversary. It was a magnetic pull, an undeniable, potent force, drawing her gaze, against her will, towards the Alpha's lodge, a formidable structure that seemed to emanate power. He emerged, a towering silhouette against the flickering firelight, a figure of imposing power and undeniable presence. He was taller than she had anticipated, his frame broad and muscular, radiating an aura of quiet, ancient authority that seemed to humble everything around him. His dark raven hair was pulled back from his face, revealing sharp, chiseled features, a jawline carved from granite, and eyes His eyes were the color of molten gold, burning with an intense, unwavering light as they met hers across the distance. And in that precise, suspended moment, the world tilted irrevocably on its axis. It wasn't the immediate surge of burning hatred she had meticulously anticipated, nor the cold, sterile clarity of her mission's purpose. Instead, it was a jolt, an electric current that coursed through her veins with the force of a lightning strike, from the tips of her toes to the deepest roots of her hair. Her wolf, usually a disciplined, obedient instrument of her will, now let out a guttural, undeniable roar, a primal recognition that resonated deep within her core, shaking her to her very foundations. It wasn't the hungry roar of a predator scenting its prey, nor the warning growl of a rival. It was the profound, aching howl of a soul recognizing its other half, an echo of completion she had never known, never even imagined. A fated bond. No? This could not be. This had to be a cruel trick of the mind, a debilitating illusion woven by fatigue and fear. Her logical mind screamed in a frantic, desperate denial, but her body, a traitorous vessel, betrayed her with every fiber of its being. A warmth, spreading like wildfire, ignited in her chest, followed by a yearning, an ache she had never known, a void she hadn't realized existed until it was suddenly, inexplicably, filled. This was the Alpha, the monster, the architect of her family's destruction, the one she was meticulously sent to destroy. How could he possibly be her truth? How could he be the very essence of her destiny? The conflicting emotions raged within her, a hurricane threatening to obliterate her carefully constructed identity. The Alpha's golden eyes widened, almost imperceptibly, a fleeting flicker of profound surprise, then something akin to awe, passing through their depths. He took a single, deliberate step forward, then another, his gaze never leaving hers, locked in an unbreakable magnetic pull. The vast distance between them seemed to shrink, the air crackling with an unspoken, almost tangible intensity, a silent conversation passing between their very souls. "Mate," he breathed, his voice a low, rough rumble, raw with an emotion so profound it bordered on reverence. It wasn't a question, seeking confirmation. It was a profound, undeniable declaration, a statement of immutable fact that resonated through the very fabric of existence. Lyra's carefully constructed facade threatened to shatter into a million irreparable pieces. She fought with every ounce of her dwindling self-control to keep her expression neutral, to maintain the shy, overwhelmed persona, the innocent girl lost in a new world. But inside, a cataclysmic battle raged, tearing her apart from within. Her 20 years of meticulous training, her sworn, unwavering vengeance, were locked in a desperate, agonizing struggle against a force she hadn't accounted for, a power far older, far more primal, and infinitely more profound than any she had ever encountered or even conceived of. The fated bond. It was a truth her heart recognized, even as her mind screamed against its impossible implications. The ensuing days blurred into a bewildering haze, a kaleidoscope of emotions Lyra hadn't known she possessed, let alone was capable of feeling. The Alpha, whose name she now knew was Thorn, was everything she had been meticulously taught to despise, the embodiment of evil, the target of her lifelong hatred. Yet, his mere presence ignited something within her, a spark of connection she found utterly impossible to deny. He was intensely observant, his golden eyes missing nothing, their piercing gaze seeming to see directly into her hidden depths. He was fiercely protective, a constant, comforting presence at her side, even when she bristled inwardly against the instinctive urge to lean into it. And, To her utter astonishment, he was surprisingly gentle, a stark, unsettling contrast to the brutal, ruthless image she had held of him in her mind for 2 decades. The monster of her nightmares was showing her a side she was completely unprepared for. Her days became a confusing blend of purposeful observation and reluctant engagement, filled with learning about the Shadow Pack, its ancient customs, its vibrant people. She watched Thorn constantly, a conflicted observer attempting to reconcile the monstrous alpha of her nightmares with the man who laughed easily and genuinely with his pack members, whose deep, resonant laughter seemed to fill the air with warmth. She saw him settle intricate disputes with quiet, reasoned wisdom, his voice calm and authoritative without being overbearing. She witnessed the easy camaraderie he shared with his beta, a burly, good-natured wolf named Gareth, whose loyalty to Thorn was almost palpable. And with a single, fleeting touch, a brush of his hand against hers, he sent shivers through her spine that had absolutely nothing to do with fear, but everything to do with a burgeoning, terrifying attraction. She found herself, against her fiercely guarded will, inexplicably drawn to him. Their bond was an undeniable living entity, a constant low hum beneath her skin, a taut, invisible tether that pulled them together with an irresistible force. When he was near, an unfamiliar sense of rightness settled over her, a feeling of coming home she had never experienced in her tumultuous life. Her wolf, usually a simmering cauldron of hatred and thirst for revenge, now purred contentedly in his presence, a traitorous beast whose loyalty had inexplicably shifted. It was a profound betrayal of her past, of her purpose, and yet it felt utterly, terrifyingly natural. One cool evening, as the silver disk of the harvest moon began its slow climb high into the inky, star-dusted sky, Thorn led her away from the bustling, vibrant heart of the camp. They walked in comfortable silence to a secluded spot overlooking the sprawling pack territory, a vantage point from which the distant lights of the lodge glittered like scattered jewels. The stars above them glittered with an almost blinding intensity, like countless diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth, and the air was crisp, carrying the clean, invigorating scent of pine and damp earth. "Tell me about your home, Lyra." Thorn's voice was a soft murmur, surprisingly gentle, devoid of the usual alpha command she'd expected. He settled beside her on a mossy outcrop, his sheer physical warmth seeping into her, despite the conscious effort she made to maintain a small, strategic space between them. His golden eyes, usually so intense, held a gentle curiosity that disarmed her more effectively than any weapon. A cold knot tightened in Lyra's stomach, a familiar clench of fear and deceit. This was it, the moment she had to spin her most elaborate, most crucial lie. She had prepared for this conversation meticulously, rehearsed every inflection, every subtle gesture. Her fabricated village, its quaint, rustic traditions, its tragic demise at the hands of rogue wolves. It was a convenient, well-crafted alibi that painted her as a helpless victim, just like so many others who sought refuge in the packs. The truth, however, festered beneath the surface. "It was peaceful," she began, her voice carefully modulated to convey a delicate tremor, a subtle hint of deep-seated sorrow. "A small village, nestled quietly away in the heart of the desolate mountains. We lived simply, in serene harmony with the ancient forest, drawing sustenance from its bounty." She launched into a detailed description of the fictional landscape, weaving in precise details she'd studied from ancient texts and maps, painting a picture of idyllic, vanished tranquility. The elaborate lie felt heavy on her tongue, an almost unbearable insult to the memory of her real home, a desecration of the sacred ground where her family had truly perished. "And your family?" Thorn's gaze remained unwavering, piercing, as if trying to discern the truth hidden beneath her words. His question hung in the air, weighted with an unspoken expectation. Lyra's breath hitched in her throat. This was the hardest part, the emotional precipice she had to navigate. She conjured the spectral images of her mother's gentle, loving smile, her father's booming, infectious laugh, her little brother's mischievous, sparkling eyes. The raw, searing pain of their loss, usually a sharp, burning agony that fueled her every action, was now strangely dulled, muted by the confusing surge of emotions Thorn invoked within her. It was a bizarre, almost shameful sensation. They were taken from me, she whispered, her voice cracking with a genuine tremor that blurred the line between acting and true emotion. This part, at least, was a harrowing truth. She focused intently on the raw, unadulterated grief, allowing a single shimmering tear to escape and trace a slow, winding path down her cheek. A rogue pack. They came swiftly, silently, in the deepest part of the moonless night. There was nothing left in the morning, only desolation and silence. Thorn reached out, his large, warm hand gently cupping her jaw, his thumb brushing away the solitary tear with a tenderness that stole her breath. The touch sent a jolt through her, an electric warmth that spread rapidly through her veins, settling deep in her chest. His eyes, usually so intense and watchful, were now filled with a profound sorrow, a shared, understanding pain that surprised her utterly, catching her completely off guard. It was a depth of empathy she had never expected from the ruthless alpha she believed him to be. "I am truly sorry, Lyra," he said, his voice a low, resonant rumble, laced with genuine, palpable empathy. No one, no living creature, should ever have to endure such an unbearable loss. His words, intended as comfort, instead twisted the knife deeper into the open wound of her deceit. He was offering her solace, heartfelt compassion, for a tragedy he himself had orchestrated, for the very act that had destroyed her world. The irony was a bitter, metallic taste in her mouth, a cruel mockery of her true purpose. Her hand instinctively, almost unconsciously, went to the small, concealed blade she always carried strapped to her inner thigh. A cold, hard reminder of her true, blood-soaked mission. But as she looked into his golden eyes, so full of warmth, understanding, and an undeniable tenderness, the blade felt heavy, not as a weapon, but as an unbearable burden. It seemed to weigh down not just her hand, but her very soul. How could she possibly kill a man who looked at her with such raw, unprotected affection? How could she betray a bond that felt so undeniably, terrifyingly real? A connection that resonated with every fiber of her being. The question gnawed at her, a constant, unsettling presence in the quiet moments, a relentless echo in her mind. Her hatred, once a roaring, all-consuming inferno, was now reduced to a flickering, dying flame, threatened by the growing, blinding light of an unforeseen, impossible truth. The path she had been set upon for so long was veering wildly, irrevocably, off course, and she was powerless to stop it. The pack festivities for the harvest moon were in full, joyous swing. A vibrant, living tapestry of uninhibited laughter, rhythmic music, and the rich, earthy scent of roasting meat mingling with the celebratory bonfires. Lyra moved through the jubilant crowd, a forced smile plastered firmly on her face, acknowledging the effusive well-wishes from pack members who now saw her, unequivocally, as their future Luna, the Alpha's destined mate. Every greeting, every touch, every heartfelt expression of welcome felt like a tightening of the noose around her neck, a suffocating embrace of a lie that was becoming increasingly unbearable. Thorn, ever by her side, a constant, anchoring presence, radiated a quiet, profound joy she hadn't seen in him before. His large, warm hand rested gently on the small of her back, a possessive yet comforting gesture that, despite her internal turmoil, sent a shiver of warmth, undeniable and unwelcome, through her. He moved with an easy, confident grace, introducing her to the wise elders, the formidable warriors, the gentle pack healer, his immense pride in her evident in every glance, every subtle shift of his body language. It was a stark, disorienting contrast to the distant, formidable, almost mythical Alpha she had expected to encounter. The cold, ruthless monster of her training. She found herself, against her fiercest will, observing him not with the cold, calculating gaze of an assassin assessing vulnerabilities, but with a growing, unsettling curiosity. She noticed the genuine care he had for his pack, a deeply ingrained instinct that manifested in countless small ways. She saw it in the patient, attentive way he listened to their concerns, big or small, the quiet wisdom with which he offered guidance, and the easy, unforced camaraderie he shared with his beta, Gareth, a burly, good-natured wolf whose loyalty was absolute. It was a side of an alpha she hadn't been prepared for, a nuanced complexity that chipped away relentlessly at the hardened shell of her lifelong vengeance, eroding its very foundations. Later that evening, as the festivities began to wind down, Thorn led her away from the boisterous celebration, guiding her towards a quiet, secluded glade bathed in the ethereal glow of the moonlight. A small, cascading waterfall whispered softly in the distance, its gentle murmur adding to the profound tranquility of the moment, creating a perfect, intimate bubble of peace. "I wanted to show you something, Lyra," he said, his voice softer than usual, a quiet reverence in his tone. He knelt by a patch of glowing moss, its ethereal luminescence illuminating a small, intricately carved wooden wolf. Its eyes, though simplistic, seemed to hold a profound wisdom. "My mother carved this for me when I was a pup. She told me it would guide me, always, to my true mate." He offered it to Lyra, holding it out in his open palm, his golden eyes alight with an unspoken, profound emotion that made her breath catch. Lyra took the delicate carving, her fingers trembling slightly as they traced the smooth, warm lines of the wolf's finely sculpted form. It was a simple, heartfelt gift, utterly devoid of the power and dominance she had come to associate with alphas. It spoke of tenderness, of unconditional love, of a quiet, enduring hope that resonated deep within her. The sheer, unassuming beauty of it pierced through her defenses. "It's beautiful, Thorn," she whispered, the words genuine, surprising even herself with their raw honesty. A pang of guilt, sharp and swift as a hunter's arrow, pierced her heart. How could she possibly accept such a deeply personal, symbolic gift, knowing her true, insidious intentions? The hypocrisy burned. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face, his touch light as a feather, yet profoundly impactful. "You are more beautiful, Lyra," he said, his voice a low, gravelly confession. "My wolf knew it, with an absolute certainty, the very moment our eyes first met across the camp. It recognized its other half, its completion." His gaze was intense, unwavering, piercing her very soul. For a fleeting, suspended moment, Lyra saw not the ruthless monster of her fabricated past, but a man, vulnerable and hopeful, laying bare his heart, offering her an unspoken future. Her wolf stirred again, a powerful, aching surge of longing echoing Thorn's unspoken words, a desperate plea for surrender. It was a profound, undeniable recognition that this was right, that this was where she truly belonged, in his arms, by his side. But then, the harrowing images of her burning village, the phantom screams of her dying family, flashed before her eyes, a chilling, brutal counterpoint to the warmth of his touch. The acrid, phantom scent of smoke filled her nostrils, momentarily overpowering the clean, earthy, intoxicating scent of Thorn. The stark reality of her mission crashed down upon her with crushing force. "Thorn," she began, her voice barely a whisper, a tremor she couldn't control shaking the very air between them. She wanted to confess, to unburden herself of the crushing, suffocating weight of her elaborate deceit, to tell him about her real, shattered past, about her insidious mission, about the hidden blade she carried, not just metaphorically, but literally, to sever their burgeoning, impossible bond. But the words caught in her throat, choked by the sheer, terrifying impossibility of it. How could she possibly explain? How could she tell him that the woman he believed was his destined mate, his future Luna, was, in fact, an assassin, meticulously sent to destroy him, to bring about the downfall of his pack? The mere thought of the agonizing pain, the profound betrayal that would contort his strong, handsome face, was utterly unbearable, a vision that tore at her very core. He seemed to misinterpret her hesitation, pulling her gently, tenderly closer, his strong, protective arms encircling her waist. His warmth enveloped her completely, and Lyra, against all her training, against all her ingrained self-preservation, found herself leaning into him, a silent, almost imperceptible sigh escaping her lips. It felt safe. It felt profoundly right. His lips brushed lightly against her forehead, then moved slowly, lingeringly, to her temple, sending electric shivers through her entire body. The wild, earthy scent of him, laced with something uniquely Thorn, filled her senses, intoxicating her, clouding her judgment, eroding her resolve with every breath. Her wolf whimpered in a profound contentment, a complete, undeniable surrender to the bond that bound them. This was the ultimate deception, the most elaborate, most insidious trap she had ever laid. But in this treacherous game, who was the prey, and who was the predator? For the very first time in her life, Lyra felt utterly, terrifyingly lost, adrift in a vast, turbulent sea of conflicting emotions, torn irrevocably between the burning embers of her past, the unyielding demand for vengeance, and the terrifying, exhilarating pull of a future she had never imagined, a destiny that defied every fiber of her being. The carefully constructed walls of her heart were crumbling, and she was powerless to stop it. The training grounds of the Shadow Pack were a stark, brutal contrast to the lush, secluded glade where Thorn had revealed a part of his soul. Here, the very air crackled with raw, untamed power and honed, controlled aggression. The ground was churned earth, scarred by countless skirmishes, the scent of sweat and effort hanging heavy. Lyra, observing from a respectful distance, watched Thorn train his elite warriors. He moved with a brutal, almost savage elegance, every strike of his powerful limbs precise, every block deliberate, every movement economical and lethal. He was a force of nature, a true alpha in his purest element, radiating an undeniable dominance that captivated and terrified her in equal measure. It was a constant, stark reminder of who he truly was, beneath the layers of unexpected tenderness and gentle affection. It was a reminder of the formidable power he wielded, the absolute authority he commanded. The kindness and warmth he showed her were undeniably facets of his being, but beneath them lay the unyielding, formidable power of a leader, a warrior, a protector, capable of immense destruction. The monster of her childhood nightmares still lurked, a shadow just beneath the surface of his golden eyes, a chilling whisper of the beast she had once believed him to be. Her internal conflict intensified with each passing day, each shared moment. The fated bond, once a jarring shock, now hummed between them like a constant, undeniable presence. A living cord stretched taut across her very soul. Her wolf, once a disciplined, loyal instrument of her vengeance, now nudged her relentlessly towards Thorn, towards the burgeoning, terrifying feelings of warmth, protection, and belonging she felt in his presence. It was a profound betrayal of everything she had ever known, a complete surrender to a destiny she was meant to defy, to shatter. Driven by a desperate, gnawing need for answers, for any shred of clarity that could explain the inexplicable events of her life, she found herself drawn, almost unconsciously, to the pack's archives. It was a small, unassuming building, tucked away from the main thoroughfare of the camp, its ancient timber walls weathered by countless seasons. Inside, it was a treasure trove of forgotten knowledge, filled with dusty rolled scrolls tied with brittle twine and thick leather-bound books whose pages crackled with age. She slipped inside, a shadow among shadows, hoping the silence of the past would offer her some explanation for the chaotic present. She found herself inexplicably drawn to a section dedicated to ancient pack histories, to the faded, almost forgotten tales of alliances forged, of devastating feuds, of migrations and territorial claims. Her eyes scanned the faded script, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, searching for any mention of her own clan, the Moon Shadows. Her breath hitched, caught in her throat, as her gaze landed on it, a small, almost insignificant entry, detailing their tragic destruction. But the details, etched in faded ink on ancient parchment, were profoundly, horrifyingly different from the narrative she had been fed. It spoke not of a swift, brutal attack by a rival pack, but of a plague, a devastating, insidious illness that had swept through the Moonshadow clan, weakening them, leaving their numbers decimated and their defenses catastrophically vulnerable. It spoke of a desperate, ignored plea for help, sent to neighboring packs, including the Shadow Pack, a plea that had gone unanswered due to widespread fear of contagion, a chilling and logical fear that spread faster than any disease. And then it spoke of a rogue pack, opportunistic and brutal, sweeping in to finish what the illness had started, preying on the weakened, desperate survivors. Her family had been killed, yes. The core tragedy was real. But not by Thorn's pack, not by him. The Alpha, Thorn, was innocent of the crime that had fueled her entire existence. The blood drained from Lyra's face, leaving her cold and numb, a hollow ache where her certainty had once resided. The intricate revenge she had meticulously planned, the burning hatred that had fueled her very existence for 20 long years, was built on a lie. A devastating, soul-crushing, unforgivable lie. She sank slowly to the dusty floor, the ancient, fragile scroll clutched in her trembling hands. Her entire life, every sacrifice she had made, every painful lesson she had endured, every moment of suffering, had been for naught. The man she was sent to kill was not a monster, but a victim of circumstance, his pack unjustly maligned. The man she was undeniably, terrifyingly falling in love with was not the perpetrator of her pain, but an innocent party entangled in a web of deceit woven by her own people. The implications were staggering, monumental in their scope. Her parents, the very figures she had sought to avenge, her elders, the revered leaders who had guided her path, they had twisted the truth, poisoned her mind with a fabricated narrative of vengeance, molding her into a weapon of their own insidious agenda. Why? What possible, justifiable reason could they have had for such profound, cruel deception? A sudden, sharp pain lanced through her head. A familiar, insidious warning sign. It was the effect of the subtle trigger her past trainers had implanted within her. A failsafe, a neurological governor designed to kick in if she ever wavered from her mission, if her resolve ever faltered. A wave of profound dizziness washed over her, and the words on the ancient scroll blurred into an unintelligible mess, swimming before her eyes. She had to get out. She had to understand the full scope of this monumental betrayal. But first, she had to confront the architects of her misery, the very people who had twisted her life into a tool of their ambition. She had to return to her true pack, to the very people who had molded her into an instrument of deceit, who had stolen her truth. The thought filled her with a cold, visceral dread, a terrifying apprehension, but also a simmering, righteous rage that threatened to erupt. The deception ran deeper than she could have ever imagined. Lyra's departure from the Shadow Pack was shrouded in a fabricated urgency, a meticulously crafted illusion. She feigned a sudden, debilitating illness, a virulent fever that she insisted required the unique, highly specific remedies of her distant, fictional mountain village, herbs known only to her people. Thorn, his golden eyes brimming with worry and concern, immediately offered to send his own highly skilled healers, renowned for their potent remedies. But Lyra vehemently refused, citing ancient traditions, the sacred secrecy of her clan's healing practices, and the specificity of the herbs, which she claimed grew only in her native soil. It was a painful, elaborate dance of lies, each step a twist of the knife in her own heart. It was an agony to leave him, to watch the profound concern etched onto his strong, handsome face, to feel the silent, aching plea of his wolf as she physically pulled away from his presence. The bond, usually a comforting hum beneath her skin, now felt like a taut, strained string, stretched precariously to its breaking point, vibrating with unspoken pain. But she had no choice. She had to go. She had to uncover the full, brutal truth, no matter how painful, how shattering it might be. The long, arduous journey back to her original pack's hidden compound was fraught with relentless internal turmoil. Every step felt heavy, burdened by the crushing weight of her elaborate deception and the fresh, agonizing realization of her parents' profound betrayal. The familiar landscape of her childhood, the rugged mountains and dense forests that had once symbolized her strength and purpose, now felt suffocating, an inescapable prison built entirely of lies. The air itself seemed to mock her, whispering of deceit. Upon her arrival at the secluded compound, nestled deep within a labyrinthine network of caves and hidden valleys, she was met by her former mentor, an elder named Morwine. Morwine's eyes, usually sharp, penetrating, and unreadable, seemed to gauge Lyra's reaction with an almost imperceptible flicker of apprehension, a subtle hint of unease deep within their depths. The old woman's usual self-assurance seemed slightly ruffled. "You have returned, child," Morwine stated, her voice devoid of its usual warmth, flat and expectant. "Did you complete your task? Is the alpha neutralized?" Lyra's gaze was steady, unwavering, despite the tremor that ran through her hands, a residual tremor of lingering rage. "I have learned the truth, Morwine," she stated, her voice surprisingly strong, resonating with a newfound, chilling conviction. "The Shadow Pack did not destroy our clan. It was a plague that ravaged us, and then opportunistic rogue wolves finished the grim work. Thorn is innocent." Morwine's composure fractured instantly, a fleeting flicker of alarm and disbelief crossing her ancient face. "Nonsense! That is the Alpha's trickery, Lyra, meant to disarm you, to lull you into a false sense of security. He is a monster, a ruthless killer. You know this in your very bones." Her voice rose with an edge of desperation. "I know what I have seen with my own eyes, Morwen," Lyra countered, her voice rising with a newfound, scorching fury. "I've seen his pack thrive, their spirits strong and compassionate. I've seen his kindness, his genuine care for his people, and I've meticulously read the ancient records, the truth etched in their very fibers. Why, Morwen? Why did you lie to me? Why did you make me live a lie for 20 years? Morwen sighed, a deep, weary resignation settling over her weathered features. Her shoulders slumped slightly. She turned, moving slowly, deliberately, and led Lyra to a secluded, almost hidden chamber, its rough-hewn stone walls adorned with faded symbols of their clan, the revered Moonshadows. The air within was thick with the scent of dried herbs, dust, and ancient, stagnant magic. It was a place of secrets, of ritual. "It was for the good of our people, Lyra," Morwen finally admitted, her voice low, almost a whisper, yet infused with an unrepentant conviction. "Our clan was dying. The plague had ravaged us, decimating our numbers, leaving us weak and vulnerable, teetering on the brink of extinction. We were desperate. Our neighboring packs, those we called allies, fearing contagion, abandoned us entirely, leaving us to perish. We had to find a way to survive, to rebuild our dwindling numbers, to ensure our very existence. And to do that, Lyra, we needed to consolidate power. The Shadow Pack, under Thorn's father, was a formidable force, strong and resource-rich. We desperately needed their lands, their vast resources, their very power to ensure our continuity." Lyra stared at her, horrified, her blood running cold. "You instigated a war? You twisted a tragic, devastating illness into an excuse for conquest? For land grabbing?" Her voice was choked with disbelief, with a growing, sickening understanding. "Not a war, Lyra," Morwen corrected, her eyes hardening, gleaming with a cold, strategic light. "A strategy, a necessary gambit for survival. We carefully spread the rumor of their treachery, the lie that they had attacked us, knowing that other fearful, distrustful packs would readily believe it. We hoped to incite enough animosity, enough chaos, to weaken them from within, to allow us to move in and reclaim what we felt was rightfully ours by right of our desperation. And my family," Lyra whispered, the words ragged, torn from her soul. "My parents, did they know? Were they part of this monstrous deception?" The thought was a chilling, nauseating revelation. Morwen hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor, avoiding Lyra's accusing stare. "Your parents, they were deeply loyal to the clan, Lyra. They believed, as did we all, in the greater good of the Moonshadows, in our survival at any cost. They were not without their own deep-seated grievances against the Shadow Pack. Even before the plague, they supported the path we chose, even if it was a difficult one. The revelation was a hammer blow, more devastating than any physical strike. Her parents, the very symbols of her unwavering revenge, the driving force behind her every breath, had been complicit in the deception, willing participants in the cruel manipulation of their own daughter, a paw in a cynical game of power. The very foundation of her entire life, built on a bedrock of false grievances, crumbled into dust, leaving her utterly adrift in a vast, terrifying sea of betrayal. "So you sent me there," Lyra continued, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage, a raw, exposed nerve. "To be a tool, to use the fated bond, a sacred, unbreakable connection, as a weapon of subterfuge and destruction. You desecrated something holy for your own selfish gains. Morwen nodded slowly, her expression unrepentant, her eyes devoid of any remorse. It was the most efficient way, Lyra. The bond is powerful, undeniable, an irresistible force. It would have allowed you to get close, to truly incapacitate him, to render him vulnerable, and then, at our signal, our forces would have moved in, swift and decisive. We intended to absorb their pack, to emerge stronger, revitalized, a force to be reckoned with. It was the only way to save us. Lyra felt a chilling coldness spread through her, seeping into her very bones. Her own people, her family, had used her, molded her into a weapon of deceit, sacrificing her truth, her very soul, all for the sake of power and territorial expansion. The revenge she had sought for so long, had dedicated her life to, was a phantom, a cruel illusion, and the love she had miraculously found was now tainted by the stench of manipulation, of calculated lies. "I won't do it," Lyra stated, her voice firm, resolute, echoing with a conviction she hadn't known she possessed. "I won't be your weapon. I won't betray Thorn. He is innocent of the crimes you accused him of." Morwen's eyes narrowed, a dangerous predatory glint entering their depths. "You have forgotten your true purpose, child. You have forgotten your loyalty to your clan, to your blood. The Alpha's influence has clouded your judgment, weakened your resolve. We cannot, will not, allow you to jeopardize our carefully laid plans, our very survival." Before Lyra could react, before she could even utter a syllable, Morwen made a swift, almost imperceptible gesture, a subtle flick of her wrist. A wave of intense dizziness washed over Lyra, far more potent and disorienting than before. The world spun wildly, a chaotic blur of colors and shapes, and a suffocating, inky darkness began to engulf her vision, pressing in from all sides. It was the failsafe, the insidious trigger designed to ensure her absolute, unquestioning obedience. She fought it with every fiber of her being, her wolf snarling in protest, a desperate, fading cry against the encroaching darkness. But the insidious magic was potent, ancient, designed to overwhelm. Her limbs grew heavy, sluggish, her muscles refusing to obey her commands, her mind foggy, disoriented, losing its grip on reality. She tried desperately to fight, to scream, to break free, but her body refused to obey. A puppet on broken strings. The last thing she saw before darkness completely consumed her was Morwen's cold, triumphant smile, a chilling tableau of ultimate betrayal. When Lyra slowly, painfully, returned to consciousness, her head throbbed with a dull, persistent ache, a relentless drumbeat behind her eyes. A strange, unsettling emptiness settled in her chest, a hollow void where a vibrant array of emotions had once churned. She was in a familiar chamber, one used exclusively for meditation and mental conditioning within her former pack's compound. Her hands were bound, not by crude physical restraints, but by shimmering bonds of pure energy, pulsing with a faint, oppressive magic that radiated an oppressive chill. Morwen stood over her, a triumphant, almost predatory glint in her ancient eyes. "The mind is a powerful thing, Lyra, a formidable weapon, but it can also be realigned, redirected to its true purpose." Her voice was a low, sibilant whisper, laced with a chilling satisfaction. A cold, creeping dread seeped into Lyra's very bones, colder than any winter chill. Realigned. They had tampered with her, not just physically, but psychically. They had attempted to erase her burgeoning feelings for Thorn, to obliterate the warmth and tenderness that had begun to blossom within her. Their intention was clear: to reinforce the ingrained hatred that had been her very purpose, to reset her back to her default programming. She probed her own mind, desperate, frantic, searching for the warmth, the longing, the undeniable pull of the fated bond. It was still there, a faint, struggling ember, but muted, like a distant, distorted echo, barely discernible beneath layers of psychic interference. The hatred, however, felt sharper, colder, more immediate, a venom injected directly into her veins. They had amplified her old programming, twisting her own memories, trying to push her back onto her original, destructive path. "What have you done to me?" Lyra's voice was a hoarse whisper, raw and guttural, her throat dry and aching. "We have merely helped you remember your true purpose, child," Morwen said, her voice smooth, almost soothing in its deceptive calm. "The Alpha is a formidable threat to our survival. His pack grows too strong, too arrogant. Our very existence, the continuation of the moon shadows, depends entirely on his absolute downfall." Lyra fought against the shimmering bonds, the arcane energy searing her skin with agonizing precision. Her wolf, weakened and disoriented by the brutal mental assault, whimpered, a shadow of its former defiance, its raw power muted and suppressed. The sense of profound betrayal, already a gaping, festering wound in her soul, deepened, festering with each passing moment. They weren't just manipulating her, they were actively trying to destroy a fundamental part of her very being, to rip away her free will. Suddenly, a violent commotion erupted from outside the chamber. Shouts, sharp and guttural, the unmistakable clang of metal on metal, and the enraged, guttural snarls of shifting wolves filled the air. Morwen's eyes widened in alarm, her carefully composed facade fracturing under the unexpected assault. A flicker of genuine fear crossed her ancient face. "What is that unholy sound?" she demanded, her voice losing its previous composure, sharp with apprehension. A powerful, resonant roar echoed through the very foundations of the compound, a sound that resonated deep within Lyra's very core, despite the layers of mental interference and forced apathy. It was Thorn, and he was here. The sheer force of his presence seemed to shake the very stone walls. Hope, bright and searing, like a blinding flash of lightning, pierced through the layers of enforced apathy and despair. He had come for her. He hadn't given up, hadn't abandoned her to her fate. He had heard the silent plea of the bond, despite all their efforts to sever it. Morwen cursed under her breath, a guttural, furious sound. "He found you. But how? How did he breach our defenses so quickly?" Her eyes darted around the chamber, seeking an explanation. "The bond," Lyra whispered, a triumphant, almost defiant smirk touching her lips despite the pain. "It's stronger than your pathetic magic, Morwen. Stronger than any of your twisted schemes. You can't break it. Not truly." Morwen's face contorted into a snarl of pure rage and frustration. "We'll see about that." She moved swiftly, decisively, towards a hidden panel in the wall, her fingers flying across its surface, revealing a series of intricately carved levers and pulsing, glowing crystals. Lyra recognized the ominous workings of a powerful, ancient binding spell, a forbidden magic designed specifically to sever even the deepest, most sacred of bonds, the fated mate bond itself. "Don't!" Lyra cried, her voice raw with desperation, regaining some of its strength as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She pulled against her ethereal restraints, her muscles screaming in protest, desperate to stop the impending horror. But Morwen ignored her, her fingers flying across the controls with frantic speed. The crystals began to glow with an ominous, sickly green light, humming with an almost palpable, malevolent energy. A wave of excruciating, tearing pain lanced through Lyra's chest, as if her very soul was being ripped violently in two. The bond, the beautiful, undeniable connection to Thorn, was under a direct, devastating assault, threatening to be torn asunder. She felt a profound emptiness beginning to bloom within her. Just then, the heavy reinforced door to the chamber burst open with a deafening crash, splintering inwards from the sheer force of the impact. Thorn stood there, framed by the chaos outside, his golden eyes blazing with an unholy fury, his wolf close to the surface, its primal rage barely contained. He was a whirlwind of raw power and righteous indignation, his presence alone enough to make the air vibrate. Gareth, his loyal beta, and a small elite contingent of his most formidable warriors stood grimly behind him, their expressions set in hard, determined lines. "Let her go, witch." Thorn's voice was a low, dangerous growl, vibrating with barely contained menace, promising swift retribution. Morwen, momentarily startled by the abrupt breach, recovered quickly, her ancient eyes gleaming with desperate defiance. "Stay back, Alpha. She is under our protection. This is a sacred matter for our clan, a private affair. You have no right to interfere." Thorn took a decisive step forward, his gaze fixed solely on Lyra, on the shimmering bonds of energy that held her captive, on the tortured expression on her face. His golden eyes narrowed imperceptibly, a flicker of raw pain crossing his face as he felt the agonizing assault on their shared bond, feeling every reverberation of Lyra's torment. "You dare to interfere with a fated mate bond?" he snarled, his voice rising in volume, reverberating through the entire chamber, shaking the very stones. "This is an abomination against our kind, a perversion of natural law." Morwen, desperate and cornered, intensified the binding spell, pouring all her remaining will and magic into it. The pain in Lyra's chest intensified tenfold, a searing, soul-shattering agony that threatened to consume her utterly, to rip her apart from the inside out. She gasped, a choked, ragged sob escaping her lips, her body convulsing with the torment. "Thorn, no," she cried, her voice weak, barely audible over the roaring in her ears. "She's trying to break the bond. She's trying to sever us completely." Thorn's eyes blazed with a fury so intense it seemed to ignite the very air around him. With a primal, earth-shattering roar, he launched himself forward, a blurring streak of pure, unadulterated power. Morwen, caught completely off guard by his raw, animalistic speed and strength, tried to erect a shimmering shield of protective magic, but Thorn's power was overwhelming, a tidal wave against a flimsy barrier. He ripped through it effortlessly, his powerful hands seizing the intricate controls of the binding spell, tearing them away from the wall with a furious, triumphant growl, shattering the crystals. The magical bonds holding Lyra shattered instantly, dissolving into shimmering motes of ethereal light, dissipating like morning mist. The agonizing pain in her chest receded, not slowly, but abruptly, replaced by a familiar, profoundly comforting warmth, a surging wave of relief that brought fresh tears to her eyes. The bond, though strained and bruised by the attack, was miraculously intact, thrumming weakly but steadily between them. Morwen shrieked, a sound of pure, unadulterated fury and despair, scrambling backward, clutching her head as the backlash of her own broken spell hit her. Gareth and the other Shadow Pack warriors moved in swiftly and decisively, apprehending Morwen and her remaining loyalists with ruthless efficiency. Thorn was by Lyra's side in an instant, his large, calloused hands gently cupping her tear-streaked face, his touch surprisingly tender. His golden eyes searched hers, filled with a tumultuous mixture of profound concern, overwhelming relief, and an unspoken fierce love. "Lyra," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion, raw and almost broken. "Are you all right? What did they do to you? What did those monsters do to our bond?" Lyra's vision was still a little blurry, but she could clearly see the genuine worry etched onto his strong, compassionate face, feel the overwhelming, undeniable love radiating from him like a powerful beacon. The hatred, the bitterness, the carefully cultivated facade she had worn for so long, finally, irrevocably, crumbled, shattering into a million pieces at his touch, at his unwavering acceptance. "They lied to me, Thorn," she whispered, the words a raw, painful confession, torn from the deepest recesses of her soul. "My whole life, 20 long years, they lied. About your pack, about my family, about everything." Tears streamed down her face, tears not just of sorrow for her lost past, but of profound relief, of gratitude, and of a chilling, painful clarity that settled over her like a heavy shroud. "I was sent to kill you. I was a weapon, Thorn, crafted for your destruction." His golden eyes widened imperceptibly, a flicker of profound shock, then a dawning understanding, a deep knowing comprehension. He didn't recoil from her, didn't condemn her, didn't accuse her. Instead, he simply pulled her closer, his strong arms wrapping around her in a fierce, protective embrace that anchored her to the present moment. "I know, Lyra," he murmured against her hair, his voice rough with emotion, surprisingly gentle. "My wolf told me. It showed me the whispers of their deceit, the insidious shadows of their manipulation, even through the haze they tried to cast. But it also showed me your truth, Lyra, your inherent goodness, your unwavering fight against what they tried to make you, against the darkness they wanted you to embody." His words were a balm to her tortured soul, a soothing salve on a gaping wound. He knew everything, and he still accepted her. He still wanted her. He still loved her. It was an impossibility, a miracle she had never dared to dream of. Lyra clung to him, burying her face in his shoulder. The wild, earthy scent of him, uniquely Thorn, filling her senses, grounding her, pulling her back from the brink of despair. The bond, finally free from the brutal interference, surged between them. A vibrant, living thing, sealing their connection with an undeniable power, a promise of a future finally free of lies. The aftermath of Lyra's tumultuous return was a delicate, intricate dance of painful revelations and the fragile, painstaking process of rebuilding trust. With Thorn steadfastly by her side, a constant pillar of support, Lyra faced her former pack. The truth, stripped bare of all lies and cunning manipulations, was laid out for all to see, raw and exposed. The Moonshadow clan was left fractured, their elders' profound deception meticulously revealed, their desperate, cynical bid for power and territory laid bare for the world to witness. Some members were genuinely horrified, their faces etched with shock and shame, while others, still clinging stubbornly to their warped sense of justice and their ingrained hatred, remained defiantly unrepentant. Thorn, with his inherent wisdom and profound compassion, offered a path forward, not of retribution or vengeful punishment, but of integration and healing. He proposed that those Moonshadows who wished to escape the suffocating cycle of deceit and vengeance could join the Shadow Pack, to live in peace, to learn a different way, to truly heal from the wounds of the past. It was a powerful testament to his extraordinary character, a profound demonstration of the true strength of an alpha who led not with brute force or unthinking dominance, but with empathy, understanding, and a genuine desire for peace. Lyra watched him in those difficult days, her heart swelling with a potent mix of awe and a profound, overwhelming love. He was everything she had once been meticulously trained to hate, to fear, to destroy. And now, miraculously, he was everything she cherished, everything she desired. The man who had been her target, her sworn enemy, was indeed her truth, the undeniable answer to questions she hadn't even known she was asking. Her own journey of healing was long and arduous, fraught with internal battles and lingering shadows. The bitter sting of her parents' betrayal, the profound waste of her childhood dedicated to a baseless lie, gnawed relentlessly at her. She often found herself wandering the quiet, secluded corners of the Shadow-Pact territory, grappling with the persistent ghosts of her past, the specters of lost identity and purpose. Thorn was always there, a silent, unwavering presence, a comforting anchor in her storm. He offered solace without judgment, simply allowing her the space to grieve, to rage, to heal at her own pace. One serene evening, as the first hesitant stars began to prick through the deepening twilight sky, casting a silvery sheen over the landscape, Lyra found herself by the cascading waterfall where Thorn had given her the grutty, intricately carved wolf. She held it now in her hand, its smooth, warm wood a tactile reminder of the precise moment her rigid world had begun its slow, irreversible shift. Thorn found her there, his powerful presence a warm, reassuring embrace in the cool evening air. He sat beside her, his large hand gently covering hers, his fingers tracing the delicate contours of the carving, a silent acknowledgement of their shared moment. "Still wrestling with the shadows, Luna?" he asked softly, using the title that now felt both foreign and profoundly, undeniably right, a mantle she was slowly beginning to accept. Lyra sighed, a deep, weary exhalation, leaning her head on his broad shoulder, feeling the solid comfort of his strength. "It's hard, Thorn. So incredibly hard. To let go of a lifetime of ingrained belief, of absolute certainty. To accept that everything I thought was true, everything I built my life upon, was a cruel, elaborate lie. It's a heavy burden to carry, my Lyra," he acknowledged, his voice deep and comforting, resonating through her. "But you don't have to carry it alone, not anymore. And the truth, even when it hurts, when it tears you apart, ultimately sets you free. It allows you to build something new, something real. I tried to kill you," she whispered again, the words still tasting like acrid ash in her mouth, a confession that still horrified her. He squeezed her hand, a gentle, reassuring pressure. "And I felt the undeniable, irresistible pull of a fated bond with a woman sent specifically to destroy me. Our beginning was unconventional, to say the least." A soft, genuine chuckle rumbled in his chest, a sound that chased away some of the lingering shadows. "But it was real, Lyra. What we have, what we are building together, it's undeniably, irrevocably real." She looked up at him, her eyes searching his, seeking absolute confirmation, hungry for reassurance. "You truly believe that? After everything?" His golden eyes met hers, shining with an unwavering conviction, a love so pure it stole her breath. "I feel it in every fiber of my being, in every beat of my heart, in every howl of my wolf. My wolf howls your name, Lyra, a psalm of completion. You are my mate, my Luna. You are my light in the deepest darkness." A single tear, not of sorrow, but of profound relief, of overwhelming gratitude, and of a nascent joy she had never known, slipped down her cheek. The immense weight she had carried for so long, the suffocating burden of deception and vengeance, began to lift, replaced by a blossoming warmth that spread through her chest, expanding with each breath. She was still Lyra, the warrior, the survivor, forged in fire and pain. But now, she was also Lyra, the mate, the Luna, the woman who had miraculously found love, profound and true, in the most unexpected, impossible of places. The fated bond, once perceived as a cruel, twisted instrument of fate, was now a sacred promise, a vibrant, living testament to destiny's unpredictable path. It was no longer a weapon, but a powerful, unyielding bridge, connecting two disparate lives, two fundamentally different worlds, into one harmonious, unbreakable whole. "I love you, Thorn," she confessed, the words raw and honest, infused with a depth of emotion she had never known she possessed. The truth resonated, echoing in the quiet night, sealing their fate. He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that made her heart ache with pure, unadulterated joy. He leaned down, his lips brushing softly against hers, a tender, lingering kiss that sealed their unspoken vows, a promise of a future finally free of shadows. The past was a scar, a stark, painful reminder of the darkness she had endured, of the lies that had shaped her. But the future, intertwined irrevocably with Thorn, was a radiant dawn, bright with limitless promise, filled with a love that had miraculously defied all odds, transcended all deception. Her wolf, once a tormented, restless beast, now purred contentedly, a profound sense of peace settling within her. It was finally, unequivocally, home. And Lyra, the assassin, had found her truth, not in the bitter taste of vengeance, but in the heart of the alpha she was sent to kill. Her extraordinary journey had led her away from the consuming darkness and into the unwavering, illuminating light of true love, and she wouldn't change a single, painful, transformative step of it for anything. The initial weeks following Morwen's defeat were a period of tumultuous transition for Lyra, a whirlwind of emotional reckoning and reluctant adaptation. The revelation of her parents' complicity in the grand deception, the agonizing truth that her entire life had been a meticulously crafted lie, gnawed at her with a relentless ferocity. It was a wound that refused to heal, a phantom limb of identity that ached with every breath. She found herself retreating into the quiet solitude of Thorn's vast lodge, a sanctuary that, despite its grandeur, felt both comforting and confining. She spent hours staring out at the vibrant, bustling Shadowpack camp, a world she was now part of, yet still felt profoundly alien to. The laughter, the communal work, the easy camaraderie all seemed to highlight the chasm of her own stolen childhood, the innocence she had never been allowed. Thorn, ever perceptive, recognized the depth of her internal struggle. He didn't press her, didn't demand explanations or an immediate assimilation into her new role as Luna. Instead, he simply was. His presence was a steady, grounding force, a silent promise of unwavering support. He would sit with her in the evenings, his large hand simply resting over hers, offering a silent comfort that spoke louder than any words. He'd share stories of his own childhood, of the responsibilities of leadership, of the joys and sorrows of pack life, painting a picture of a world both vast and intimately connected. He understood that healing was not a linear path, that scars, even those unseen, took time to fade. He gave her space to mourn the loss of her past, even as he quietly showed her the promise of a future by his side. The Moonshadow survivors, a mixture of the defiant and the disillusioned, were slowly, painstakingly integrated into the Shadow Pack. It was a delicate process, fraught with lingering distrust and the ghosts of old grievances. Thorn had decreed no punishment for those who chose peace, only a chance to start anew, to learn the true meaning of communal living and mutual respect. Lyra observed the interactions, particularly how her former mentors and comrades, the ones who had shaped her into an assassin, grappled with their new reality. Some, like the stern warrior Jorik, softened over time, his rigid posture slowly relaxing as he witnessed Thorn's just leadership. Others, like the bitter elder Lyra, not her given name, clung to their resentment, their eyes still holding a spark of the old animosity. Lyra knew her journey to reconciliation with her past was far from over. One afternoon, Thorn found her in the deepest part of the Pack's ancient library, a place she now frequented, devouring scrolls and texts on Pack history, seeking to understand the tapestry of the werewolf world beyond her own narrow, poisoned upbringing. She was poring over a faded map, tracing the ancient migration routes of their ancestors. "Lost in the past again, Luna?" Thorn's voice was soft, not intrusive, but a gentle inquiry. He leaned against the carved wooden doorway, his golden eyes filled with an unspoken understanding. Lyra sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Trying to piece it together. The history I was taught was so skewed. I need to understand how the world truly works, not just how my elders wanted me to see it." She looked up at him, a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "It's hard, Thorn. Sometimes I feel like a ghost, haunting a life that isn't mine." He pushed off the doorframe and came to sit beside her, his warmth a comforting anchor. "Your life is very much yours, Lyra, and it's here now. The past is a foundation, not a prison. You learn from it, you understand it, and then you build upon it. What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for a reason," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "A reason why my elders, why my parents, why they chose to sacrifice so much, including me, for a lie. Morwen said it was for power, for resources. But there has to be more to it, a deeper current of belief, however." "Misguided," Thorn nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Power and resources are strong motivators, but sometimes they are born from deeper fears. Our ancestors, even those who turned to deceit, often believed they were protecting their people, ensuring their survival against perceived threats. The Moonshadows always guarded their knowledge fiercely. Perhaps there are secrets even Morwen didn't fully grasp, ancient fears passed down through generations." His words resonated with her. The Moonshadows had always prided themselves on their unique connection to lunar magic, their arcane knowledge. Could there be something beyond simple territorial greed that drove Morwen and her ilk? Something rooted in a deeper, more profound misunderstanding of the world? "Perhaps," Lyra murmured, a new thread of curiosity weaving its way through her grief. "But what could be so terrifying that it justifies such a monstrous deception?" Thorn's expression grew serious. "The world is full of threats, Lyra, not all of them physical. Ancient prophecies, hidden powers, imbalances in the natural order, sometimes these fears drive people to extreme measures." He paused, his gaze distant, lost in thought. "There are whispers, even among the oldest packs, of a time when the balance between human and wolf was fragile, when the moon itself held a power that could be wielded or corrupted by those who dared to seek it." Lyra felt a chill trace down her spine. This was a deeper layer, a more complex narrative than simple conquest. This hinted at something ancient, something spiritual. What kind of power? A power that could unite all wolves or destroy them, Thorn said, his voice low, almost a warning. A power tied to the celestial cycles, to the very essence of the moon. It is why our pack is called the Shadow Pack. We are guardians, Lyra, not just of our territory, but of the balance. We stand between the light and the dark, ensuring neither overwhelms the other. His words ignited a spark of renewed purpose within Lyra. If her people had been misled by a twisted interpretation of an ancient truth, then perhaps understanding that truth was the path to true reconciliation, not just for herself, but for the remnants of her clan. Her mission, once one of destruction, was now evolving into one of discovery, of healing. And Thorn, her once target, was now her guide. The concept of ancient prophecies and hidden lunar powers captivated Lyra, offering a potential explanation for the profound deception that had shaped her life. It was a narrative far more complex than simple territorial greed, one that hinted at deeper, more spiritual roots for her clan's actions. She immersed herself in the Shadow Pack's extensive archives, with Thorn often joining her, patiently explaining nuances of the texts, translating archaic dialects, and offering insights gleaned from generations of alpha knowledge. Through diligent study, Lyra discovered fragmented accounts of a forgotten era, a time when the moon shadows were not just a clan, but guardians of a unique form of lunar magic. Their elders, it seemed, had once possessed a deep understanding of the moon's cycles and its influence on the lycanthropic form, a power that allowed them to draw strength directly from the celestial body. However, the texts alluded to a catastrophic event, a discord of the moon, where this power became corrupted, leading to chaos and destruction. The true details of this discord were lost to time, replaced by vague warnings and a profound fear of uncontrolled lunar energies. She began to theorize that her elders, Morwen included, had misinterpreted these warnings, believing that the Shadow Pack, with its strong, earthbound power, represented a threat to the moon shadow's precarious balance, a force that could trigger another discord. The lie about the plague, and the subsequent attack, was a desperate attempt to consolidate power, to eliminate what they perceived as a cosmic imbalance. Their fear had blinded them, twisting truth into a grotesque parody of prophecy. One afternoon, while sifting through a particularly ancient, brittle scroll detailing moon phases, Lyra's fingers brushed against a subtle indentation on the parchment. She carefully unrolled it further, revealing a hidden compartment within the scroll itself. Inside lay a small, tarnished silver locket, intricate lunar symbols etched into its surface. It was unlike anything she had seen in the Shadow Pack's records. A strange warmth spread through her hand as she held it. Her wolf stirred, not with the aggressive recognition it felt for Thorn, but with a deep, ancestral resonance, a quiet whisper of belonging. This was from her people, a tangible link to the true history of the moon shadows. Thorn, who had been engrossed in another text nearby, looked up, sensing her shift in energy. His golden eyes landed on the locket. "What have you found, Lyra?" "I don't know," she murmured, her voice filled with wonder. "It feels old, like it holds secrets." She opened the locket. Inside, etched onto its polished surface, was a single, cryptic symbol, a crescent moon impaled by a single, sharp shard of obsidian. Thorn leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "That symbol, it's a variant of an ancient moonshadow glyph. But the obsidian sharded that's unfamiliar. It speaks of a wound, a break." Lyra felt a prickle of unease. A wound in the moon's power? A break in the balance? Perhaps. Thorn said, his gaze distant, thoughtful. The legends speak of a lost artifact, something that was shattered during the discord. Some believe it held the key to the Moonshadow's full power, others that it was the source of their downfall. The locket felt heavy in Lyra's hand, a tangible link to the mysterious past of her clan, and a potential key to understanding their profound, destructive fear. It was more than just a historical relic. It felt like a piece of her own lost identity. The weight of it seemed to beckon her, to unravel its secrets. The discovery of the locket and the cryptic obsidian shard symbol ignited a new, profound sense of urgency within Lyra. It was no longer just about understanding her past, it was about understanding the true nature of the power her people had wielded, and how it might have gone so catastrophically wrong. The implications for the future, for the fragile peace now being forged between the remnants of the Moonshadows and the Shadow Pack, felt immense. She spent days, and increasingly nights, poring over ancient texts, her mind a whirlwind of fragmented prophecies and forgotten lore. Thorn, sensing her renewed drive, became her steadfast partner in this intellectual quest, his vast knowledge of werewolf history complementing her intuitive connection to the Moonshadow's arcane ways. They discovered more fragmented accounts of the discord of the moon, consistently describing it as a cataclysmic event, not just a metaphor. These texts hinted at a physical artifact, a lunar heartstone, said to amplify the Moonshadow's connection to the moon, allowing them to tap into its raw energies. The obsidian shard symbol, they theorized, represented the shattering of this heartstone, an event that led to the corruption of their lunar magic, turning it erratic and destructive. This corruption, the text suggested, led to widespread madness and internal strife within the Moonshadow clan, ultimately weakening them and leaving them vulnerable to the plague and the subsequent Rogue Pack attack. The discord wasn't a punishment, but a direct consequence of a broken artifact and a desperate, misguided attempt by their elders to regain a lost, uncontrolled power. This revelation offered a profound, albeit painful, clarity for Lyra. Her elders hadn't lied out of pure malice, but out of a desperate, fear-driven attempt to correct what they perceived as a cosmic imbalance, to restore a broken power. They saw the Shadow Pack, with its strong, earth-rooted energies, not as an enemy, but as an opposing force that needed to be either controlled or eliminated to facilitate their own clan's healing. The lie was a means to an end, a tragically flawed plan born from desperation and profound misunderstanding. One evening, as the moon rose, full and brilliant, casting silver light across the forest, Lyra sat with Thorn near the edge of the camp. The locket lay open in her palm, the obsidian shard symbol seeming to pulse faintly in the moonlight. "It makes sense now, Thorn," she said, her voice quiet, reflective. "My ancestors weren't just power-hungry, they were terrified. Terrified of a world without their full lunar connection, terrified of what their corrupted power might do, and terrified of being weak. They believed breaking your pack's strength would restore their own." Thorn nodded, his gaze fixed on the locket. "Fear can drive even the wisest to acts of desperation. The fear of extinction is a powerful motivator." He paused, his brow furrowed. "But if this lunar heartstone was shattered, Lyra, then what became of its pieces? And what would happen if they were brought together again?" Lyra shivered, a sudden chill despite the warmth of Thorn's presence. The text spoke of the shards being scattered, hidden away by those who survived the discord. Fearful of their power, some legends even suggest a single, larger shard remained, almost like a core fragment, while others were broken into smaller pieces. She looked at the symbol in the locket. This obsidian sharded, Could it be a symbolic representation of that core fragment? Or perhaps even a piece of it, somehow embedded within the locket itself? As she spoke, the locket in her hand pulsed again, this time more strongly, a warm thrumming that resonated with her very bones. The lunar symbols on its surface seemed to glow faintly. Her wolf, usually quiet when she was deep in thought, stirred, a low, inquisitive rumble emanating from deep within her chest. It wasn't the instinctive surge of the fated bond, but something else, something ancient and deeply connected to the locket. "It's reacting to you, Lyra," Thorn observed, his eyes wide with surprise and a hint of awe. "Your moonshadow blood, it responds to the magic. It feels as if a part of you is calling to it, and it's calling back." Lyra felt a strange pull, a subtle directional sense guiding her. It was faint, like a whisper on the wind, but undeniable. The locket was not merely a symbol, it was a key, and perhaps a fragment itself. I think this locket is meant to guide me to the core fragment, if it exists." Thorn's hand gently covered hers, his grip firm. "Then we will follow it, Lyra, together. Whatever secrets it holds, whatever power it represents, we will face it as one. This is no longer just your past, it is our shared future." His unwavering support filled Lyra with a quiet strength. Her vengeance had been a destructive path, fueled by a lie. Her new purpose, guided by truth and love, felt right, exhilarating. The search for the lunar heartstone fragments became not just an archaeological quest, but a journey of self-discovery, of reconciliation, and of solidifying the bond that now inextricably linked her to Thorn and the Shadow Pack. The first step on this unpredictable path lay with the locket itself. The quest for the lunar heartstone fragments began with a quiet yet profound sense of purpose. Lyra, now the acknowledged Luna of the Shadow Pack, felt a profound responsibility, not just to her own healing, but to understanding and perhaps rectifying the ancient imbalances that had plagued her ancestral clan. The locket, with its pulsating warmth and subtle directional pull, became her primary guide. It was a faint, almost intuitive sense, a whisper in her mind that strengthened with concentration, nudging her towards a specific direction, a resonant frequency only she, with her moonshadow blood, could truly perceive. Thorn, ever her anchor, ensured the pack was secure, and then dedicated himself fully to supporting her. He understood the profound significance of this journey, not just for Lyra's past, but for the potential stability of the entire werewolf world. Gareth, his loyal beta, took on more leadership duties, while other trusted warriors formed a small, elite contingent to accompany them, ensuring their safety on what was sure to be a perilous journey. The weight of their mission was palpable, yet laced with an undeniable sense of destiny. Their initial path led them deep into the forbidding Whisperwood, an ancient forest known for its dense, gnarled trees and the eerie silence that pervaded its interior. The locket's pull grew stronger here, a persistent thrumming against Lyra's palm. The journey was physically demanding. They traversed treacherous ravines, scaled slippery rock faces, and navigated through thick, impenetrable undergrowth that seemed to fight their every step. Lyra, with her years of rigorous training, moved with an almost ethereal grace, her senses attuned to every rustle, every scent, every shift in the wind. Thorn, a powerful force of nature, cleared paths with ease, his strength a constant reassurance. After days of relentless trekking, the locket's pull became almost overwhelming, drawing her towards a hidden cave system, its entrance shrouded by a veil of cascading ivy. The air within was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. something ancient and potent, a lingering magical resonance. As they ventured deeper, the cave narrowed, leading them into a vast cavernous chamber. In the center, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow emanating from unseen sources, stood an obsidian pedestal, and upon it, radiating a faint, silvery light, rested the core fragment of the lunar heartstone. It was larger than Lyra had imagined, a smooth, dark stone, perfectly round, with crescent moon symbols swirling across its surface, marred by a single jagged crack that mirrored the symbol in her locket. Lyra approached it slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. The locket in her hand vibrated violently, almost leaping from her grasp. As she drew closer, the crack on the core fragment seemed to deepen, a thin tendril of silver energy escaping from it, reaching out towards her. Her wolf snarled, a primal recognition, but this time it was not of aggression, but of profound connection, of ancient belonging. "It's broken," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and sorrow. "This is the source of the discord, the corrupted power." Thorn moved to her side, his hand resting on her back, a grounding presence. "It carries the scars of what happened, Lyra, but perhaps it can be healed. Perhaps this is why the locket guided you here." As Thorn spoke, Lyra instinctively reached out, her fingers hovering just above the core fragment. The locket in her hand intensified its vibration, and then, with a soft click, the tiny obsidian shard within the locket detached itself, leaping from its setting and embedding itself perfectly into the jagged crack on the bida. Lunar Heartstone. A blinding flash of silver light erupted from the heartstone, pushing Lyra and Thorn back. The light pulsed, growing brighter, filling the cavern. It was not destructive, but transformative. The jagged crack on the heartstone began to slowly, visibly, mend, lines of silver light tracing its path until the surface was smooth and whole once more. The crescent moon symbols glowed with an incandescent brilliance, and the stone pulsed with a steady, powerful rhythm. Like a beating heart, Lyra felt a profound surge of energy course through her, unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was the raw power of the moon, uncorrupted, flowing through her veins, resonating with her moonshadow bloodline. She felt connected, truly connected, to the moon, to the earth, to Thorn, and to every living thing around her. Her wolf howled, a pure, joyous sound of recognition and restoration. "The heartstone, it's healed," Thorn breathed, his voice filled with awe. He looked at Lyra, his golden eyes wide with wonder. "And it's flowing through you, Luna. You are connected to it." Lyra looked at her hands, which shimmered faintly with silver light. A sense of incredible power, but also immense responsibility, settled upon her. The ancient prophecies, the fears of her elders, all had stemmed from this brokenness. Now, it was whole, and she was its conduit. This was more than just a family heirloom. It was a key to restoring balance. "The other fragments," Lyra said, her voice clear and strong, filled with a renewed purpose. "The smaller pieces, they must still be scattered. We have to find them. To truly mend the discord, all parts must be reunited with the core. The healing of the heartstone was the first step, but the true work, the work of mending the ancient breach, had just begun. This power, if left unchecked or fragmented, could still pose a threat. But now she understood it, and with Thorn she would master it. The restoration of the lunar heartstone was a revelation, transforming Lyra from a fractured individual burdened by a deceptive past into a powerful conduit of ancient lunar magic. The continuous flow of energy from the whole heartstone through her felt both exhilarating and overwhelming, a constant hum of power beneath her skin. It was a profound connection, not just to the moon, but to the very essence of the Moonshadow legacy, purified and potent. However, the presence of the other, smaller fragments still scattered across the world remained a pressing concern. Thorn and Lyra understood that while the core was healed, the lingering shards could still cause ripples of discord, or even be sought out by those who would misuse their power. The journey was far from over. It had merely entered a new, more complex phase. Their next destination was dictated by the subtle, yet undeniable pull of the now activated lunar heartstone, guiding Lyra towards a region steeped in old magic and forgotten history. The Sunken Marshes. This was a treacherous, sprawling wetland, infamous for its shifting terrain, venomous creatures, and the oppressive, heavy silence that hung in the air, broken only by the croaking of unseen frogs and the distant cries of marshacant birds. It was a place where few dared to tread, a testament to the powerful allure of the first fragment. The journey was slow and arduous. Their small contingent, led by Thorn and Lyra, moved cautiously through the dense, waterlogged landscape. Thorn's strength was invaluable, as he helped them navigate the deep, murky waters and pull them through clinging mud that threatened to swallow them whole. Lyra, her senses heightened by the Heartstone's influence, became an even more acute guide, sensing dangers before they materialized, picking out the safest paths through the deceptive terrain. The silver light that sometimes emanated from her, almost imperceptibly, when the lunar energy surged within her, became a whispered legend among the warriors. After nearly 2 weeks of relentless travel, the Heartstone's pull intensified, leading them to a desolate, mist-shrouded island in the heart of the marshes. On this island, within a crumbling, moss-covered ruin that had once been a grand temple, Lyra felt an almost painful surge of energy. Deep within the temple's collapsed sanctuary, lying amidst a tangle of roots and ancient stones, was the first small fragment. It was a piece no larger than her thumb, jagged and irregular, but pulsating with a faint, erratic silver light. As Lyra knelt, the core heartstone, still resting in a protective satchel Thorn carried, vibrated strongly, and the fragment lifted itself, drawn by an invisible force. It floated towards Lyra's outstretched hand, and as it made contact, a surge of raw, untamed energy flared. This fragment, unlike the core, carried a residue of the discord. Lyra felt a momentary flash of overwhelming sorrow, of ancient despair radiating from it. Her wolf whimpered, recoiling from the negative emotions. But then, as the energy from the core heartstone poured through her, neutralizing the discordant energy, the fragment softened, its erratic light becoming steady, pure. It fused seamlessly with the core, a small, perfect addition to its luminous surface. Lyra felt a subtle increase in her own power, a greater clarity in her connection to the moon. "One down," Thorn murmured, his voice filled with relief, his hand gently touching her shoulder. "That was more intense than I expected." "The fragments carry the memory of the discord, Thorn," Lyra explained, her voice slightly breathless. "They carry the pain, the fear. My ancestors must have hidden them to contain that broken power, to prevent it from recorrupting the core. Their success, however, was not unnoticed. The sudden surge of lunar energy, even fleetingly, had drawn attention. As they emerged from the ruin, a pack of marsh wolves, their fur matted and eyes gleaming with a feral, almost maddened light, surrounded them. These were not typical wild wolves. Their movements were erratic, their growls laced with a guttural, unnatural rasp. Lyra immediately recognized the signs. They were corrupted by residual fragmented lunar energy, twisted by the very discord they sought to mend. "They've been affected by the lingering energy of the broken stone," Lyra said, her voice grim, her hand instinctively going to the hilt of the small blade she now kept as a symbol of her past, no longer a weapon of malice. "They're not just rogue, they're unstable." Thorn shifted, his body tensing, his wolf rising to the surface. "We fight, Lyra. Protect the Heartstone." The battle was swift and brutal. The marsh wolves, though crazed, fought with a desperate ferocity. Thorn, a blur of raw power, moved with devastating efficiency, his roars echoing through the mist. Gareth and the other Shadowpack warriors formed an impenetrable defense, their synchronized movements a testament to their training. Lyra, however, felt a different kind of power surge through her. As the corrupted wolves lunged, she found herself instinctively channeling the pure lunar energy from the now enhanced Heartstone. A wave of silvery light burst from her, not physically harming the wolves, but washing over them, calming their frenzied minds, breaking the hold of the discordant energy. The crazed gleam in their eyes dimmed, replaced by confusion, then fear. They whimpered, their aggression replaced by a desperate urge to flee. They turned and scattered, melting back into the mist-shrouded marsh. Thorn turned to Lyra, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "You didn't just fight them, Lyra. You healed them. You purified their minds." Lyra looked at her hands, shimmering faintly with residual silver light. "The Heartstone's power. It's not just destructive, it's restorative. My ancestors used it for strength, but they forgot its true purpose was balance, renewal." A new understanding dawned on her. The moon shadows hadn't just used the power, they had corrupted it, turning its restorative properties into destructive forces through their fear and greed. This journey wasn't just about finding fragments, it was about demonstrating the true, benevolent power of the lunar Heartstone. The implications were immense, stretching beyond her personal quest, touching the very fabric of the werewolf world. The encounter in the sunken marshes marked a significant turning point in Lyra's journey. Not only had they retrieved the first fragment, but Lyra had wielded the lunar Heartstone's restored power in a way her ancestors never had for healing, not just strength. This profound realization, that the moon shadow's magic was inherently restorative, not destructive, shifted her perspective entirely. It ignited a deeper desire within her, to not only recover the fragments, but to demonstrate the true benevolent nature of the lunar power, to perhaps even redefine the moon shadow legacy. Their next pursuit led them eastward, guided by the Heartstone's insistent pull towards the Whispering Peaks. These were formidable mountains, their jagged peaks often shrouded in swirling mists, their lower slopes cloaked in ancient, primeval forests. The air grew colder as they ascended, crisp and thin, carrying the scent of snow and ancient stone. The journey was a relentless climb, testing the endurance of even Thorn's seasoned warriors. Lyra found her connection to the Heartstone deepening with each passing day, the constant flow of lunar energy enhancing her stamina and awareness, making the physical demands less taxing. After weeks of arduous trekking, navigating narrow mountain passes and traversing unstable scree slopes, the Heartstone's hum intensified, guiding them towards a particularly isolated and daunting peak known as the Sentinel's Eye. This mountain was steeped in local folklore, rumored to be home to ancient, watchful spirits. They discovered the fragment nestled within a hidden cave, high on the mountain's windswept face. The cave entrance was almost invisible, concealed behind a sheer rock wall, requiring Thorn to scale a perilous climb to even reach it. Inside, the air was still and cold, almost sterile. The fragment itself was larger than the first, a smooth, teardrop-shaped piece that emitted a steady, cool blue light. As Lyra reached for it, a profound sense of stillness of quiet introspection washed over her. This fragment seemed to emanate a powerful sense of observation, of memory. The moment Lyra touched it, the core heartstone thrummed violently within its satchel, and the teardrop-shaped fragment glowed brighter before seamlessly fusing with the core. Lyra felt a surge of ancient memories flood her mind, not her own, but echoes of the past, glimpses of moonshadow elders from centuries ago, observing the stars, charting lunar cycles, their faces filled with awe. Not fear. This fragment, it seemed, held the wisdom and knowledge of her ancestors, untainted by the discord. It showed her how the lunar heartstone was truly meant to be used. For understanding, for insight, for harmony with the celestial. "It holds their memories," Lyra whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "The good memories, before the fear took hold." She saw flashes of her people living in balance, their magic flowing freely, a gentle force that nurtured life, not destroyed it. Their success, however, was once again swiftly met with unforeseen challenges. As they made their descent, they were ambushed by a group of highly skilled, elusive hunters. These were not werewolves, but humans, clad in dark, camouflaged gear, their bows drawn, arrows tipped with silver. Their movements were swift, practiced, and their eyes held a chilling, ruthless determination. They were clearly a specialized unit, not typical rogue hunters. "Moon hunters," Thorn growled, his voice grim, immediately recognizing their insignia stylized silver arrow piercing a moon. "They're a militant order, sworn to eradicate all shapeshifters. They see our existence as an affront to humanity." The battle was fierce. The hunters moved with deadly precision, their silver arrows whistling through the air, forcing the Shadow Pack warriors to shift into their wolf forms to better deflect the attacks. Thorn, a magnificent black wolf, was a whirlwind of motion, protecting his pack. Lyra, her human form still preferred for channeling the Heartstone's power, found herself facing a direct assault. A particularly agile hunter, his face grim, lunged at her, a silver dagger glinting in his hand. But Lyra was no longer just the trained assassin. She was also a conduit of lunar power. As the hunter thrust the dagger, Lyra instinctively extended her hand, and a shimmering shield of pure moonlight erupted around her, deflecting the blow with a soft clang. The hunter staggered back, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, Lyra channeled the restorative energy from the Heartstone, not at the hunter, but into the ground around them. The very earth seemed to pulse with silver light, and the hunter, along with his comrades, suddenly felt a profound weariness, their movements slowing, their focus blurring. They weren't harmed, but their will to fight dissolved, their energy sapped. Seeing their opportunity, Thorn and his warriors moved in, disarming the disoriented hunters without inflicting fatal wounds. The moon hunters, bewildered and exhausted, were quickly subdued. Thorn approached Lyra, his wolf's eyes still blazing, but filled with immense pride. "You disarmed them without a single drop of blood. That was extraordinary, Lyra." Lyra looked at the subdued hunters, their faces pale, their eyes unfocused, no longer filled with hatred, but with a dull exhaustion. "Their hatred is driven by fear, Thorn. Fear of the unknown, fear of our power. The Heartstone can affect their will, dampen their aggression. It's a different kind of weapon." She held up the now brighter Heartstone. "This isn't about destruction, it's about balance. And sometimes, balance means neutralizing conflict without annihilation." This second fragment, imbued with memories of ancient moonshadow wisdom and her new understanding of the Heartstone's restorative power, solidified Lyra's evolving purpose. She was not just collecting fragments, she was rediscovering the true path of her ancestors, a path of harmony, not fear-driven conquest. The moon hunters, though a dangerous threat, were also a symptom of the wider world's misunderstanding of werewolf kind. The lunar heartstone, once a symbol of her clan's downfall, was becoming a beacon of hope for a more balanced future. The journey continued, each retrieved fragment bringing Lyra closer to understanding the full scope of the lunar heartstone's power and the true, complex history of her moonshadow ancestors. The third fragment, guided by the heartstone's unwavering pull, led them to the desolate, windswept plains known as the Whispering Steppes. This was a land of endless horizons, where ancient rock formations rose like silent sentinels, and the wind carried faint, mournful echoes of forgotten battles. The openness of the terrain felt starkly different from the dense forests and towering peaks, forcing Lyra to adapt her senses to the subtle shifts in the air currents and the vast, empty distances. They finally located the fragment within a labyrinthine series of underground caves, carved by millennia of wind and water erosion. The cave system was riddled with cunning traps and illusionary pathways, clearly designed to deter any who sought its hidden treasure. It was a testament to Thorne's strategic mind and Gareth's unwavering vigilance that they navigated the perilous maze without incident. The third fragment was found nestled within a crystalline geode, pulsating with a vibrant emerald green light. It was roughly hexagonal in shape, its surface smooth and cool to the touch. As Lyra reached for it, the core heartstone, now emitting a steady, soft silver glow, thrummed with a deep resonance. The moment her fingers brushed the fragment, a surge of profound awareness flowed into her, a vivid understanding of interconnectedness, of the natural world's delicate balance, and of the profound spiritual link between all living things. This fragment, it seemed, held the ancestral moonshadow's knowledge of the earth, of healing herbs, of natural rhythms, all intertwined with the moon's subtle influence. It was the wisdom of a people who lived in profound harmony with their environment. The fragment dissolved into pure energy, seamlessly fusing with the core heartstone, its emerald glow now a permanent addition to the pulsating silver. Lyra felt a deep sense of peace settle over her, a connection to the very heartbeat of the earth. Her wolf, which had been restless through the journey, now felt a deep calm, a sense of belonging to the vast, living world. However, the retrieval of the third fragment did not go unnoticed. As they emerged from the cave system into the vast open plains, they were met by a contingent of formidable warriors from a rival pack, the Desert Howlers. These wolves were known for their fierce independence, their territorial aggression, and their unwavering loyalty to their alpha, a scarred, imposing male named Ragnar. Their presence was a stark display of power, their forms shifting between human and wolf, their growls low and menacing. Ragnar stepped forward, his eyes burning with suspicion. "You trespass on Howler lands, Alpha Thorn, and you carry a powerful ancient artifact that pulses with moonshadow magic. Explain yourselves, or face the consequences." His voice was a guttural challenge, echoing across the open plains. Thorn remained calm, his stance open, but his wolf was clearly on edge. "We mean no disrespect, Alpha Ragnar. We are on a quest to restore an ancient balance, a power that affects all of us. This is the Lunar Heartstone, an artifact of peace, not conquest." Ragnar scoffed, his lips curling in a sneer. "Peace? Moon shadow magic brought only chaos in the old stories. And your mate, Lyra, she is one of them. We heard whispers of your arrival, of her strange power. We believe you seek to resurrect a dangerous past." He gestured to the moonshadow remnants within Thorn's group, still somewhat uneasy in their new alliances. They brought ruin before, they will bring it again. Lyra stepped forward, her hand instinctively going to the now integrated lunar heartstone, which pulsed gently at her side. She felt the wisdom of the third fragment flowing through her, the understanding of interconnectedness. Alpha Ragnar, my ancestors were misled by fear. The moon shadow's power, when broken, caused discord. But when whole lay, when understood, it brings balance. We are not here to resurrect chaos, but to heal it. This heartstone holds the knowledge of true harmony, not destruction. Ragnar hesitated, his wolf's instincts warring with his ingrained mistrust. Words are easy, Moonshadow. Show me this harmony, he challenged. His eyes narrowed, his posture aggressive. Thorn placed a reassuring hand on Lyra's back, a silent testament of his trust. Lyra understood. This wasn't about a fight, but about demonstrating the Heartstone's true nature. She took a deep breath, focusing the combined energies of the core and the new fragments. She raised her hand, and the Heartstone glowed with a pure, gentle silver light, imbued now with the emerald hue of interconnectedness. She channeled its restorative energy, not at the desert howlers, but towards the vast, dry plain around them. The barren ground began to subtly shift. Where there was dry, cracked earth, tiny shoots of resilient desert grasses and hardy wildflowers began to unfurl, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the desolate landscape. A faint, sweet scent of blooming life filled the air, carried on the wind. It was a small, localized miracle, a testament to life emerging from barrenness. The very air around the howlers seemed to soften, their aggressive postures subtly relaxing, their growls fading into murmurs of awe. Ragnar stared, his eyes wide with disbelief, then a grudging respect. His aggressive posture softened, his shoulders dropping. Such a display, he murmured, his voice touched with awe. We have heard legends of such power, but never witnessed it. He looked at Lyra with newfound respect, then at Thorn. Perhaps there is truth in your words, Alpha Thorn. You are unlike the stories we hear of moonshadows. And your mate, she is something new. He extended a hand to Thorn, a gesture of cautious truce. The desert howlers will not interfere with your quest, Alpha Thorn. But we will watch, and we will listen. May the balance be truly restored. The retrieval of the third fragment and the subsequent peaceful, albeit tense encounter with the desert howlers marked a significant victory. It was a tangible demonstration of the Heartstone's true power, a power that could bring life and understanding, not just strength. Lyra felt a profound sense of vindication for her ancestors, knowing that their legacy was not one of destructive power, but of profound natural harmony, tragically misunderstood. The journey was far from over, but with each retrieved fragment, the path forward became clearer, the true purpose of her quest shining brighter than ever before. The acquisition of the third fragment had not only strengthened the lunar Heartstone's power, but had also brought a new level of awareness and acceptance from other packs. A testament to Thorn's diplomatic strength and Lyra's emerging connection to the ancient artifact. The demonstration of restorative magic on the desolate plains had sparked whispers of hope across the region, replacing fear with cautious curiosity. Now, guided by the insistent, rhythmic pulse of the Heartstone, their journey turned towards the Velestone Islands, a remote archipelago shrouded in perpetual mist and known for its treacherous, shifting tides. These islands were rumored to be ancient spiritual sites, places where the veil between worlds was thin and where time itself seemed to flow differently. The sea voyage was perilous. Thorn, though a land-bound alpha, navigated the challenging waters with surprising skill. his wolf's instincts adapting to the vast, open expanse. Lyra, however, felt a profound unease as they approached the islands. The mist, rather than being natural fog, seemed imbued with a strange, distorting energy that disoriented their senses and muffled sounds. The Heartstone, usually a steady warmth, pulsed erratically as if struggling to cut through an oppressive force. After several days of navigating the treacherous currents and spectral mists, they finally landed on a small, craggy isle, its shores littered with ancient, strangely carved stones. The island was silent, save for the eerie cry of unseen seabirds and the distant crash of waves against jagged rocks. The Heartstone's pull became almost frantic, leading Lyra towards a towering monolithic rock formation that resembled a gaping maw. Inside, the cave twisted and turned, its walls slick with perpetual dampness. The air grew heavy, thick with a sense of ancient, undisturbed power. They found the fourth fragment in a deep, sunless pool, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the faint light from the Heartstone in Lyra's satchel. The fragment itself was a large, irregular crystal, its facets gleaming with an internal, flickering violet light. It seemed to draw in all ambient sound, creating an unnatural, profound silence. As Lyra reached into the cold water, her fingers brushing against the crystal, a surge of overwhelming sensory input flooded her mind. It wasn't memories or knowledge, but raw, unfiltered emotions, profound grief, deep loneliness, and an ancient, echoing despair. This fragment seemed to hold the emotional weight of the discord, the pain of a people truly broken, the collective sorrow of her ancestors. Lyra gasped, clutching her head as the emotions threatened to overwhelm her. Her wolf whimpered, a sorrowful sound of shared pain. Thorn was instantly by her side, his large hands on her shoulders, grounding her. "Lyra, what is it?" "Painy, so much pain," Lyra choked out, struggling to breathe. "The sorrow of the discorded, it's all here." But then, as the core Heartstone pulsed with renewed vigor through Lyra's body, its pure, healing energy began to flow into the fragment. The overwhelming emotions began to recede, replaced by a subtle current of acceptance, of quiet peace. The violet crystal pulsed, then lifted itself from the water, floating towards Lyra. As it fused with the core, the new energy shimmered through Lyra, imbuing her with a profound sense of empathy, a deeper understanding of universal suffering, and a quiet, resolute compassion. The Heartstone now hummed with a stable, comforting violet glow, complementing its silver and emerald hues. As they emerged from the cave, the mist outside had thickened, swirling around them like a living entity, and from within its depths, a spectral howl echoed, mournful and chilling. Shadowy forms began to materialize from the mist apparitions of moonshadow wolves, their forms translucent, their eyes hollow with ancient grief. These were the lingering spirits of her ancestors, trapped by the residual emotional energy of the broken fragment, unable to find peace. They were bound by the very discord Lyra sought to mend. "They're not hostile," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with a profound sadness. "They're just a lost, bound by the pain this fragment held." Gorn, recognizing their spectral nature, signaled his warriors to hold their positions, not to engage. These were not enemies, but echoes of suffering. Lyra stepped forward, extending her hands, the newly enhanced Heartstone glowing with a warm, steady violet light. She focused, channeling the pure, compassionate energy through her, not as a weapon, but as a balm. "You are free," she whispered, her voice resonating with empathy, carrying the Heartstone's restorative power. "The discord is being mended. Your pain can finally end. Find your peace." As the Heartstone's pure, empathetic energy washed over the spectral forms, their translucent bodies shimmered, their hollow eyes slowly filling with a faint, peaceful light. The mournful howls transformed into soft, sighing whispers, like the wind passing through reeds. One by one, the apparitions dissolved, ascending into the mist, their spirits finally finding release. A sense of profound tranquility settled over the island, replacing the oppressive melancholy. The mist itself seemed to thin, revealing glimpses of the vast, open ocean. Lyra felt a deep ancestral healing within her own soul, as if a part of her lineage had finally been set free. "They are at peace," Thorn said, his voice filled with awe. "You gave them what they couldn't find for centuries, Lyra. Rest." He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close, knowing the emotional toll such an experience could take. Lyra leaned into his strength, exhausted but profoundly fulfilled. This fourth fragment, with its release of ancient sorrow and its gift of empathy, solidified her belief in the Heartstone's true purpose: to bring balance, not just to power, but to the very fabric of existence, to heal the deepest wounds, even those unseen. The Veilstone Islands had revealed not just a fragment, but a profound emotional truth about her lineage, and about the transformative power of compassion. The journey for the fifth and final fragment of the lunar Heartstone led Lyra and Thorn to the scorching heart of the Whispering Desert. It was a vast, unforgiving expanse of shifting sands and towering dunes, where the sun beat down with relentless fury during the day, and the nights brought a chilling cold. The air shimmered with heat, and mirages danced on the horizon, playing tricks on the eyes. The Heartstone, now pulsing with a steady, complex symphony of silver, emerald, and violet light, hummed with an almost frenetic energy, indicating the proximity of the last piece. This journey was to be the culmination of their quest, the final step in mending the ancient discord. Navigating the desert was a brutal test of endurance. Water was scarce, and the heat was oppressive. Thorn's warriors, accustomed to more temperate climates, struggled with the extreme conditions. Thorn himself, though formidable, bore the strain. Lyra, however, felt the Heartstone's enhanced power flow through her, bolstering her resilience, making her almost impervious to the elements. Her moonshadow blood, with its deep connection to elemental balance, resonated with the desert's raw power, allowing her to discern subtle shifts in the sand, predicting dangerous sinkholes and guiding them through the treacherous Tracker landscape. After days of relentless travel, the Heartstone's pull became overwhelming, drawing them towards a colossal, ancient pyramid, half buried in the shifting sands. This was no ordinary structure. Its weathered stones were carved with forgotten symbols, and the air around it shimmered with an almost palpable aura of ancient magic. Legend spoke of it as the Tomb of the First Kings, a place where powerful artifacts were said to be interred. They located the fragment deep within the pyramid's central chamber, in a hidden sarcophagus adorned with intricate carvings of lunar cycles. The chamber was dark, the air thick with the scent of dust and untold centuries of stillness. The final fragment was a small, perfectly spherical pearl, luminous with an internal golden light. As Lyra reached for it, the core Heartstone pulsed fiercely, its combined energies yearning for completion. The moment Lyra's fingers brushed the pearl, a surge of overwhelming insight flooded her mind. This wasn't emotion, or memory, or power in the raw sense. It was pure, unadulterated understanding of cosmic balance, of the interconnectedness of dimensions, of the subtle dance between light and shadow, life and death. This fragment held the ancestral moonshadow's ultimate wisdom, The true meaning of the lunar heartstone was not merely to augment strength, but to maintain universal harmony, to be a conduit for the flow of all energies, ensuring that no single force dominated another. It was the key to true enlightenment, a profound understanding of their place in the grand tapestry of existence. As the golden pearl lifted from its resting place and seamlessly fused with the core heartstone, a brilliant, blinding light erupted, a harmonious blend of silver, emerald, violet, and gold. The heartstone pulsed with a steady, profound rhythm, radiating a powerful, pure energy that filled the entire chamber. Lyra felt a completeness she had never known, a unity of body, mind, and spirit. Her wolf soared, unbound, filled with an ancient, joyous peace. The discord was truly mended. However, the complete restoration of the lunar heartstone, with its surge of immense power, had awakened a formidable, unexpected threat. As they emerged from the pyramid, the ground began to tremble violently. From beneath the shifting sands, a colossal, ancient creature began to stir, its form slowly rising from millennia of slumber. It was a guardian of the pyramid, a being of pure earth and shadow magic, awakened by the heartstone's full power. Its eyes glowed with malevolent red light, and its massive, clawed hands ripped through the sand with terrifying ease. It was an entity born of imbalance, a monstrous creation of raw, uncontrolled power that had festered in the desert for ages, a direct consequence of the discord. "It's a creature of imbalance," Lyra gasped, her voice filled with a newfound understanding, seeing beyond its monstrous form to its true nature. Born from the chaos of the broken heartstone, it's drawn to the full power, seeking to corrupt it again. Dorn immediately shifted, his magnificent black wolf form bristling with protective fury. Gareth and the remaining warriors stood ready, their faces grim, knowing they faced a power unlike any they had encountered. The guardian lunged, its shadow magic twisting the air, making it heavy and suffocating. Thorn met it head-on, his power immense, but the creature was ancient, its hide like stone, its attacks devastating. The battle was titanic, shaking the very desert. Lyra knew she couldn't simply channel restorative energy to this creature. It was a manifestation of the very imbalance they sought to end. It needed to be reabsorbed, not merely calmed. She focused, channeling the full, pure, harmonious energy of the now complete lunar heartstone. The heartstone pulsed in her hand, glowing with a soft, multicolored light. She extended her hand towards the rampaging guardian, not with aggression, but with profound intent to restore balance. A shimmering aura of multicolored light erupted from Lyra, flowing directly towards the guardian. As it made contact, the creature roared, a sound of agony and resistance, its shadow magic lashing out wildly. But the heartstone's pure, harmonious energy was overwhelming. It began to dissolve the guardian's monstrous form, not by destroying it, but by reintegrating its chaotic energy back into the natural flow, reabsorbing the imbalance. The red malevolence in its eyes faded, replaced by a dull, passive glow as its form slowly, inexorably, began to dissipate back into the earth and shadow from which it had arisen. The tremors ceased. The air cleared. The guardian, once a terrifying monolith of destruction, was gone, reabsorbed into the desert, its discordant energy neutralized. A profound silence descended upon the pyramid. Thorn shifted back to his human form, exhausted but awestruck, his eyes fixed on Lyra, then on the glowing heartstone in her hand. "You didn't just defeat it, Lyra," he breathed, his voice filled with reverence. "You purified it. You restored its energy to the earth." Lyra looked at the now fully integrated heartstone, pulsing with a steady, gentle glow, radiating a profound sense of universal harmony. It's complete, Thorn. The discord is truly mended, the lunar heartstone is whole again. And now we know its true purpose, not just for Moonshadows, but for all of us. Her quest, born from vengeance, forged in deception, and transformed by love, had culminated in a profound understanding of balance, of interconnectedness. The lunar heartstone, once a symbol of her clan's demise, was now a beacon of universal harmony, and Lyra, the trained assassin, was its guardian, its conduit. Her past was no longer a burden, but a foundation from which she would lead, with Thorn by her side, towards a future of true peace for all werewolf kind. The journey of finding love had led them to saving their world, piece by precious piece. The return to the Shadowpact territory was a hero's welcome. Whispers of Lyra's incredible feats, of the lunar heartstone's restoration, and of the unique restorative power she now wielded, had spread like wildfire. Wolves from various packs, even those who had been wary, came to witness the restored artifact and the Luna who carried its light. Lyra, standing beside Thorn, held the complete lunar heartstone in her hands. It pulsed with a soft, multicolored glow, radiating an undeniable aura of peace and balance that touched everyone present. The Moonshadow survivors, particularly those who had chosen to integrate into the Shadowpact, looked at Lyra with newfound respect and profound awe. Even those elders who had initially clung to their bitterness felt the heartstone's soothing influence, a silent balm to their long-held resentments. Morwen, now a humbled prisoner, had been taken away to be judged by a council of elders from various packs, her fate uncertain, but no longer Lyra's concern. Lyra had faced her, not with anger, but with a quiet sorrow for the years lost to deceit, and a firm resolve to forge a different path. In the ensuing months, the impact of the lunar heartstone and Lyra's connection to it was profound and far-reaching. Lyra discovered she could sense imbalances not just in magical energies, but also in the emotional and spiritual well-being of the pack. She used the heartstone's power to soothe frayed nerves, to mediate disputes with a gentle hand, and to foster a deeper sense of community and understanding among the diverse wolves now living under Thorn's leadership. The Moonshadows began to truly heal, rediscovering aspects of their lunar heritage that were harmonious and beneficial, no longer twisted by fear. Thorn, ever the visionary alpha, worked tirelessly with Lyra to build alliances based on newfound trust, showcasing the Heartstone's ability to bring peace and understanding rather than dominance. He arranged meetings with neighboring packs, including the Desert Howlers, where Lyra, guided by the Heartstone, demonstrated its healing and balancing properties. She helped to ease tensions, to resolve long-standing territorial disputes with diplomacy backed by a tangible force of peace, not aggression. The Moonhunters, still subdued by the Heartstone's touch, retreated, their fervent hatred momentarily quelled, their understanding of werewolf power profoundly challenged. Lyra's days were no longer consumed by vengeance, but by purpose, by creation. She established a new form of training, focusing on channeling lunar energy for healing, for insight, for nurturing the land, teaching the younger Moonshadows to embrace their heritage without succumbing to the destructive fears of the past. She worked alongside the Shadowpack's healers, using the Heartstone's restorative energy to aid in recovery from injuries and illnesses, accelerating natural healing processes. One evening, as the moon hung full and glorious in the night sky, casting a luminous glow over the pack territory, Thorn led Lyra to their private chambers within the lodge. The air was soft, filled with the scent of wildflowers and the subtle comforting hum of the Heartstone, which Lyra now wore as a pendant, close to her own heart. "It's incredible, Lyra," Thorn murmured, his golden eyes reflecting the moon's light as he watched her. "The change you've brought, the peace you've cultivated. You didn't just mend a broken artifact, you mended a broken world." Lyra smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. "It wasn't just me, Thorn. It was the Heartstone's true power, unleashed by its completion. And it was your unwavering belief, your strength, your leadership. You gave me the freedom to find the truth, and the support to embrace it." She reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "We did it together." He pulled her gently closer, his arms encircling her waist, his touch tender and possessive. "Our destinies were intertwined from the moment our wolves recognized each other, despite all the lies that tried to keep us apart. You came to kill me, and instead, you saved me. You saved us all." Lyra leaned into him, her head resting against his chest, listening to the steady, reassuring beat of his heart. The fated bond, once a source of terrifying conflict, was now a beautiful, unbreakable tapestry of love, respect, and shared purpose. She felt complete, whole, finally at peace. The scars of her past remained, but they were no longer gaping wounds. They were reminders of how far she had come, of the strength she had found within herself, and of the extraordinary love that had blossomed from the ashes of Kra. "Betrayal," her wolf purred contentedly within her, a silent song of absolute belonging. The assassin was gone, replaced by the Luna, the guardian of the lunar heartstone, the beloved mate of the Alpha. Their story was no longer just about vengeance, or even just about two individuals finding love. It was about healing ancient wounds, forging new paths, and building a future where truth and harmony prevailed. And as she looked up at the radiant moon, Lyra knew with an absolute certainty that their journey had truly just begun.